coming up, in addition to breaking down the silos, Dale's going to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart, and that is that I think we are behind a little bit on the hospitality side with the major hotel brands and the major restaurant brands, that we really don't do a very good job of assisting our people and supporting them when they're traveling for business. And all of our people travel a lot for business. So how many of you received an orientation before you came to a conference? How many of you received an orientation when you go overseas to transact business on behalf of your company? Do you have a support team available if something were to go wrong? If you're assaulted on the plane, or the volcanic ash, or you get COVID and you have to stay? Is your business talking to you about those things? And I think we're behind, and I think we need to do a better job of recognizing our duty of care to our employees. Yeah, a lot of people think, well, it's workers' compensation, but it's really, in some respects it could be, but people have to understand the limitations on workers' comp. There's a time limitation, there's often a radius limitation in terms of space, and so it's important that we take a close look by breaking down the silos between legal, risk, security, travel managers, HR, and everybody working together to establish those things. And our next speaker happens to be the CEO of a company that does all of those things. It helps them with policy development, helps you in achieving your duty of care. And Dale Buckner is the CEO of Global Guardian, former Green Beret, lived and operated in over 70 countries globally, and has been busier than a bricklayer in Baghdad with the Ukraine situation. Dale, we appreciate you taking time to come speak with us. Welcome.
Thank you. Next couple slides, please. Yeah, leave it right there, please. A couple admin notes so I don't forget. I'm the last brief before your break, so I know you're probably tired of sitting. I only have 7 slides, and I'm going to move really quickly. And I have set my alarm to go off, so we will do a proper Q&A, because for me, that's the best part of the engagement. To follow up Daniel, if he's in the room, Dan, do not be offended by some of the things I'm going to say. And the gentleman who spoke last, I love what he said. What do you do with the data? I'm a so what guy. I am in a so what business. You have insurance, there's a hurricane, so what? Daniel, it's worthless. You know it's worthless? Tell me why that matters. We have COVID hit, you have medical insurance, it doesn't cover pandemics, so what? I'm in the so what business. I'm the cement between all of those standard policies that corporate America has gotten away with in the last 70 years. I'm going to fill all the gaps, if you will. I'm going to live everything I talk about. Because of that, any topic as we go through here, please challenge my thesis. Tell me I'm wrong. You're all lawyers, you're all smart. Tell me I'm wrong. That's really good interaction. I won't hate you for it. Hopefully you don't hate me for what I'm about to say. I'm not one of those guys, but I would like to have that kind of interaction. And lastly, to Stephen's point, the world I live in, the business has grown almost 600% in the last 5 years because the world is changing. The world is decoupling. I'm going to show you that. What corporate America has gotten away with policy and legal indemnification is not going to work tomorrow. I'm going to show you why in the trends. As you look at this, these are the things I'm going to highlight: global conflict, societal breakdown, violent crime, cyber. I have a very practical view of this, very different than the insurance piece, and natural disasters. Again, a very practical, different view of all this. You look at those ripped right out of the headlines. Those are really old. I built these slides like 2 months ago. We could fill those 10 times over every single week. Whether it's the Uber cyber hack, what just happened in Fort Myer with Ian, what's going on in Russia as of yesterday since the Ukrainians blew up the bridge. I literally have Fortune 500 companies a month and a half ago that say, Dale, the war, it is relegated to the east and southeast. We're putting our people back in. Our answer, it's too early. War's having life of their own. No one knows what's going to happen. Do not put your infrastructure back in place yet. What happened yesterday? What do you think is going on today? People are now scrambling and doing emergency evacuations again. Ultimately, we supported about 11,000 people, clients, getting out of Ukraine. Over half of them went in too early. Now they're all coming back out. The war's not over. That's the bottom line. People want to believe it is because they're not getting bombed again. It's crazy. But we have people in corporate America that don't understand that, they don't want to hear it, they're focused on the bottom line only, and then they make bad decisions. Next slide. Global conflicts. When COVID hit, the world, to include conflicts, got really quiet. Syrian war, Iraq war got quiet, Mexican cartels stopped moving a lot of dope, the border shut down to a certain degree, there's a lot less human trafficking. There was all kinds of conflicts that kind of tamped down. You couldn't fly, you couldn't drive, borders were closed. It really did get quiet for about 8 months. And then what I would tell you is, you look at that list, these conflicts not only come back to the level they were, they're now exceeding and even more robust because of the financial damage, and the lower level populations of these countries are now more at risk and more desperate, and desperate people do desperate things. So these things are wildly back in effect. Mexico is a disaster in our opinion. It's a narco state forever. You're never going to get it back. The problem you have with Mexico is it's not Mexicans are bad. It's we, the United States, love drugs. We like to get high. We are the demand. Where there's demand, there's going to be supply. Americans don't like to hear that. They want to blame the source. It's part of it, but it's certainly not the narrative of it's all their fault. It's not real. If you look at Somalia, Venezuela, we still have a gaping hole in Venezuela in our hemisphere. At some point, somebody's going to have to address it. It's a sore in Central South America that has second, third, fourth effect across the board. Did anybody ever see, predict, or think we could leave Afghanistan in a more horrible way? In this day and age, with the intelligence we have, with the capabilities we have, could we have possibly done that worse? It's not clean. The Ukraine, 72% data of my Fortune 1000 clients did not heed our warnings on Russia invading Ukraine. 34 days before they crossed the line, we sent out a 54-page report that said 65% chance the Russians will invade, or they will fire missiles off the sea, they will execute overstrike by Air Force, or they will actually cross the border. 10% chance we're going to find a diplomatic solution. 25% chance this is a full-blown war. We then sent out over 100 alerts to the Fortune 1000. 72% said, Dale, you're being alarmist. This is going to be fine. Putin's never going to invade. Did we get 9/11 right? Did we get the Paris attacks right? Did we get the Turkey coup right? Did we get the Myanmar coup right? Did we get the exfil of Afghanistan right? Did we get Russia and Ukraine right? The answer is, as robust as our intel and our data is, wars are uncertain. They are unpredictable. As much actuary data as the insurance guys want to put into these things, it's almost never right. Did we get the path of Ian in Florida right a few weeks ago? Everything was saying, because we're tracking this, I had to put teams in Tampa, in Bradenton, in Miami, and in Naples, thinking it was going to Tampa, and it was only going to be a hurricane level 3. Right up until about 48 hours, it was a level 3 going to Tampa. Within 12 hours, it turned into a 4, hung a right, and ended up hitting Naples and the outer islands and ripping that place apart. I was in Naples, Fort Myers. I was in Naples, writing that out with the teams. As good as the information is, as good as the technology is, we're not getting it right. 2017, the first hurricane rips above the Virgin Islands. There's 3 hotels that we supported through that. And then Puerto Rico. All of the models were wrong. The Visa CEO says about the Ukraine a week after Russia invades. This is open source, you can Google it. Says, I've learned more about war in the last 48 hours in my life. We, the United States, his country's been at war for the longest period in its history. How did he miss that? And the uncertainty of what went on in Iraq, the uncertainty of what went on in Afghanistan, how is it a leader of that stature has no clue about war when his own country's been at for 20 years? We have a problem in our society in corporate America. This is not going to get easier, period. The world's decoupling. That's the trend. It's not going to stop. We're not going back. I get asked that question. Dale, when are we going to go back tomorrow? That is normal. Next slide. You guys tied to this, some of these are my clients. Does anybody think, since COVID, the bottom 20 or 30% of this nation is doing well, even with all of the security safety nets we have for our society? The answer is no. The answer is there is a loss of respect for institutions, there's a loss of respect for humanity, there's a loss of respect for each other. I don't think it's going back. It's not that we don't have employment options. It's that we are losing the social fabric of our country, and that literally the contract between a citizen and the expectation of its government is being frayed in real time, right before your eyes, right now. That's how that stuff happens. Next slide. 3 years in a row. If you don't track this data, go back and do some research. We are going 3 years in a row as a country, the highest murder rate in the history, and we just keep breaking the record since COVID. Just if you live in DC, which I live very close, all you got to do is watch the news in the morning and the news in the evening. It's every single day, nonstop. LA's out of control, Chicago's out of control, New York City's out of control. It's not getting better. It's not going to be defund the police. That's not going to work. We don't pay police enough. We expect police literally to solve all our societal problems. We want them to solve mental health issues. We want them to solve criminal. We want them to solve domestic issues. And then we're going to pay them $46,000 a year and go solve our problems. Who's kidding here? If you have children, do you want to be a cop and make 46 grand and be literally dumped on all of our societal problems? It's no different than teachers. We've got a problem. Last part of this, and I'm happy to discuss whatever political position you have. I'll talk to you about anything. I carried a gun for 26 years of my life, almost every single day of my life. I have killed people in the aspiration of defending the country. I think we have a gun problem. I think the Second Amendment is crazy. It is not built for modern society. Did the Florida school shooting or the Uvalde school shooting prove or disprove that guns with good guys take care of guns with bad guys? The reality is, it is comical to me to think that we're going to put a cop or whatever apparatus we put with a gun and think that they're just going to take this down. We don't fund police well enough to do that. I was a special forces officer. We spent millions creating operators that would walk right in and go right after the threat. But you have to spend millions to identify them, train them, equip them. That is not just some natural skill set. You grab a guy, put him in an academy for 8 weeks, and go, here you go, the next school shooting, don't be the hero. It is not going to happen. It's not real. Arm teachers with guns and see what happens. It's comical. Next slide. Cyber. Anybody here think cyber has been solved? CrowdStrike is a client and partner. I love it. Mandy and FireEye, client partner. Love it. Great guys. They do their best. JP Morgan has built a 1,000-man cyber army, as Goldman Sachs has. This morning, by the way, JP Morgan had a little incident. The Uber CISO has been convicted of trying to cover up a cyber incident. Target, Marriott, Home Depot, it's nonstop. It's every single month. What's the latest challenge in cyber? COVID. We send everybody home. Fortune 500 estimate, 32% of those employees will never come back to the office. So let's just take that as face value. It'll probably change. Well, let's assume 30% of your workforce is never going to go back to the office. Sir, you brought it up. Since COVID, cyber has exploded. Why? Here's the granular, simple answer. If you have thousands of people working from home that connect back into your company systems, and they're on a router that's 10 years old and hasn't been updated in 10 years, it's on a terrible password, they're not an encrypted VPN, They have a Wi-Fi that's wildly open to the rest of the apartment building, the townhouse, everybody above them to the right, left. These are all ways into your company. If you don't issue a company phone that's got an encrypted end-to-end VPN on it, where everything is encrypted and protected, or you have your employees bring their own device, it's wide open. These are all ways into your company. You are completely exposed. So until corporate America, for its work-from-home force, is willing to issue the laptop and issue the phone and actually protect that device, I don't care what insurance you have, I don't care what software you have, I don't care what platform you have. This is going to go vertical. Eventually, it will be uninsurable, period. In my firm now, between the last 2 years, my cyber insurance has gone up 65%. And I am in the cyber business. Every cell phone, every laptop, every desktop I have is monitored in real time. Everything I do on my phone is monitored by human beings looking for a red flag. It's super intrusive, and I get every employee to sign off on it because I won't do business any other way. If you're not willing to go that far, just expect the losses and expect target scenario because it's coming. It's not if but when.
While we're on this topic, just real quick, talk to them about the challenges with VPNs, just to add more good news to the equation.
I'll just leave you this, we can talk after. All VPNs are not created equal. A little dirty hidden secret. The ones that are on TV that are like $6 a month, well, there's a reason they're $6 a month. It's Walmart. They're not secure. You can break those VPNs. Period. Those VPNs are not monitored in real time. You get a red flag 3 days later after your phone's been hacked. That's the reality. All VPNs are not created equal. Next slide.
And just hold on a second. A VPN is a virtual private network, just for anybody that isn't familiar with the acronym. Sorry, Dale.
Okay. I'm almost done. Natural disasters. Don't care what you said politically. Whether you believe in global warming, don't believe in global warming, think this is human interaction or not, doesn't matter. What is a fact, that what is undeniable, is that the storms are bigger, more frequent, more powerful. It doesn't matter if it's the middle of the country last year. The tornadoes were the longest in the history of the country. Ian, I just talked about Ian. What a complete mess. Luckily, it didn't go to Tampa. I'd be there for 8 months if it went to Tampa. I still have teams down there in Fort Myers, but we'd be in Tampa for 8 months. Bottom line is this is not going away. Insurance is going to cover nothing. Just get used to it. Like it's almost comical. Insurance is not going to cover terrorism, it's not going to cover war zones, it's not going to cover natural disasters, soon it's not going to cover cyber. So as a firm, you have two choices. You either self-insure for it, or you bring in guys that are doers that solve these problems. There is no other solution. It is that simple. We've now had to go into the Philippines this year. We're now in Florida. In 2017, we had 3,800 people out of the Caribbean. This is going to happen at a frequency that no one quite understands or sees. And insurance will cover almost nothing. Period. That's it. Next slide. This is my last slide. Here's my message. Corporate America, to use Stephen's words, is behind. The standard, and I think it was your slide, sir, you had a list of things that insurance kind of overlooks. There wasn't even a bullet on emergency response. I could go get 11,000 clients and 2,700 clients out of Russia and Ukraine. None of that's covered by insurance. You can have travel insurance all day long. Travel insurance only works when it's 83 degrees, sunny with no wind, and everything's perfect. That's reality. It's not going to cover Ukraine. It's not going to cover Taiwan. And make no mistake, I make predictions every time I brief here, Stephen. We are on a path. We will go to conflict with China. There will be a conflict. We're already in a soft war right now. It's a warm war, but it's economic. You're watching every single week. The administration just last week announced it's going to pull all supply chain support to the mainland of China for them to make all their chips. You're seeing that they're going to hit back. This is going to go tit for tat and escalate, and once Z is reelected, he's in his third term, it's going to happen in the next couple of years. His population is still rising, his GDP is still rising, although they're in turbulent times because of COVID. If you're going to make a strike and go for it, it's probably in the next 3 to 5 years. I don't think you're going to stop that. Here's what's going to happen. No different than all the other conflicts I've described. We're going to start warning people. Corporate America, PepsiCo, should have a short-term plan, a medium-term plan, a long-term plan, whether they're going to sell Pepsi in China. Because at some point it's going to change and they're going to make hard decisions. No different than what just happened with BP, who lost $31 billion in assets in Russia because they just walked away. Because they didn't see the warning signs, they didn't listen, they thought this will blow over. There's $3.7 to $5 trillion in disruption in the supply chain if we go to war over Taiwan. None of this, the last point, to Stephen's point, can be managed in a silo. You can't, this is a typical, last point, I'll get into Q&A. This is the typical standard profile of every corporate headquarters. The HR director does benefits and insurance and medical evac. The chief security officer does cameras, cheap, untrained garbage guards, and then responds to emergencies. And the CISO on cyber. They're not integrated, they don't talk. You get someone kidnapped, they have a phone and a company cell phone, and a company laptop. You have kidnapped ransom insurance, going to get activated. You've got to notify the family. You've got to message the family. You've got to pay for all of that, whether it's through insurance or you self-insure. You've got to manage, if you get them back. I've been through 9 kidnapped and ransom cases. When you get a human being back from being kidnapped, you don't just shotgun them to the airport and send them home and act like everything's fine. They could have PTSD. They could have been assaulted. You've got to go through a whole process. None of that's insurance. None of that's in insurance. They don't account for any of it. Your K&R insurance is going to cover the negotiator and his daily rate. And hopefully up to about $3 to $5 million with a bad truck. Bottom line is, every time you have a crime, a cyber incident, natural disaster, conflict, and or a medical issue, it's not siloed. And if you think corporate headquarters are going to manage what the world's going to look like over the next 10 to 20 years in a siloed fashion the way they have for 70 years, it's just not true. Every single month I watch it fail over and over and over and over. Insurance is not enough. Having a duty of care vendor that will medically evac and track your people. We track flights and hotels, so you know where your people are. Okay? You know you have 75 people in Paris. There's a terrorist attack going. Tell me what you do. So what? Tracking situational awareness does not actually solve the problem. You have a VPN. So what? You just got hacked. What are you going to do about it? Who's going to remediate that? Who is going to pay the bad guys through the dark web with Bitcoin to get your data back and then stand you back up? It's the so what in corporate America that now matters. Having a plan, having a risk analysis, to your point, I hope you have a great risk analysis session with a large committee. What corporate America fails at is they do the exercise, identify all the risks, and then do little to nothing about it and go, that will just get taken care of that way, and they assume it away. I deal with it every single day. And then we end up being the so what guys and then coming and fix it. Because there's no other answer. So I'll pause there. Q&A, please. Anything. I'll talk about any topic you want.
Dale, talk to them a little bit about, if you're in the hotel business or the restaurant business, where would you not go today?
Yeah. So, obviously, you look at parts of Africa, we're going to have wars over water in Africa and food. There's no question. It's already starting at some level. There's certain parts of Africa that are just incredibly dangerous. If you're going to go there, you've got to have the two-man rule, nobody goes alone. If you're going to go there, nobody's allowed to use taxis. Nobody's allowed to use Uber. It's insanity that that is even offered. And again, I deal with Fortune 1000, they love, we connected Uber to our travel tracking. Okay, you're going to let a single female go to Brazil or India by herself? I've had 4 kidnappings in Central South America. They're all females by themselves. The fact that a corporate headquarters would let them go by themselves to Brazil and Mexico is just maddening. And they go, well, we track them. Okay, so what? There's just real problems with a lot of these high-risk cities. So I think when you look at Africa, you look at what's going on, there's still a war. We're still killing people every single week in Syria. The United States Army, military, we're killing people every single week. Just go back and Google it. We're striking terrorist leaders. We're still completely at war in Iraq and Afghanistan. There are parts of those countries, law firms specifically, go in and out of Baghdad every single month that I do car and driver executive protection for every month. They cut that off. We just told them, look, it's so volatile right now in Baghdad. It's just not worth the risk. And luckily they listen. Sometimes they don't.
Can you talk a little bit about the pervasiveness of K&R, the kidnap and ransom, how it's not as high dollar amount, and so it's more volume.
Yeah. So kidnap and ransom up until about, call it 5 years ago. When you had a kidnap and ransom case, it was typically relatively well organized, and the kidnappers were asking for big dollar amounts, and we've had oil and gas executives help for years, right? And they want 5, 10, 15, 20 million plus. Now, between what you're seeing in cyber and physical kidnap and ransom, and cyber ransom, is the dollar amounts are now between, call it 60 grand to $250,000, but at scale. I mean, just every single week nonstop. So the number has come way down, and you can self-insure that. The key is getting your people back and getting your data back in a timely manner and knowing what to do with it when you get it back. So the entire kidnap and extortion, kidnap and ransom industry completely changed. Now it's just high volume, low rates, they know you'll pay it, typically they know you're insured for it, and it'll go. In some cases you're not. But ultimately, that's how that entire industry has changed. Here's the last dirty little secret, 2 things. One, if your company headquarters has kidnap and ransom insurance, if you've never actually talked to the people that are going to negotiate for your firm, you're wrong, you're way behind. Here's a dirty little secret in the industry. The largest kidnap and ransom, they call it a firehouse. If you've ever heard that term in that little world, it's like the cool lingo. It's 18 men and women. It's primarily men. They sit in London. They're regionally oriented. My kidnap and ransom team is 16 people. That's it. These are tiny teams, and there's only about 6 or 7 of these firms that actually have a firehouse. We're one of them. It's a tiny little community. Everybody knows everybody. And then on the outside, they all contract with insurance firms as ICs, as outsiders. But it is a tiny number of people, and every one of your firms or any clients you advise, if they have K&R, they have a complete right to say, I want to interview the actual negotiator for Africa. I want to interview the negotiator for South America. I want to interview the negotiator for Asia. And if they give you any grief whatsoever, you need to fire them. You just need to move on. And you can mandate the insurance firm. You can say, I want to know the service provider under the policy. And if you're not happy, move. Move. Because the insurance provider will move. Otherwise, you leave them too. The bottom line is your clients and your firms have a lot more leverage over insurance and over these providers than you think. And if you're being unfulfilled with what you're getting by insurance, or you're being unfulfilled by your duty care provider, your security firm, or your medical evac firm, fire them. Go to a firm that will actually do what it says it can do, and read the fine print. Most of these duty of care firms have the exact same language as insurance, meaning I don't go into terrorism, I don't go into war, I don't go into natural disaster, I don't go into cyber. It's a bit of a joke. Read it. Read the fine print and know what you don't have, and then either self-insure or build your own team. There are only 2 options.
So we got just a couple of minutes. Anybody in the audience? I don't want to.
Oh, come on. Give me at least one question.
Yes, sir. Yeah, all right, there we go. Juliet, go ahead.
Just one question, but much more boring than kidnap and ransom. I want to go back to the people working from home.
Yeah.
My understanding is that now a lot of, especially millennial and Gen Z, use their work email to order stuff online, and it's causing a lot of security risk. But I'm not aware that a lot of companies have a policy to say you can't do that. So is that a thing to worry about? Or?
Well, it's just any time you expose the company to an outside vendor, there's risk, depending on what that vendor's platform is. So there's the risk. This hasn't come up in my world as an issue, but I would simply say, yeah, it's a risk because you're exposing the company and you're giving them a factor on the way into the company. Sir?
Yeah, if you have a different approach to paying
Do I, or do insurance?
I know insurance companies do a massive.
I don't. So the way we run this is, this is the trade-off. This is why we love general counsel. So my contract, which was built by Skadden 11 years ago, says outright, I'm indemnified no matter what, and here's why. I'm going to go into where insurance firms won't, period. I will go right into the hurricane. I will go right into Paris during the attack. I will move people out of Ukraine, literally with missiles going on in the background. All those are true statements. In return, contractually, I'm completely indemnified. Here's why. We were loading 6 buses of people in Kyiv to get them out of there. You can hear the missile strikes in the background over the radio as we're monitoring this. I cannot control where the next Russian strike goes. If I'm in Mexico and I'm at Cancun at a major corporate event, and there's 2 cartels that decide to start shooting bullets at each other across the beach, which just happened recently, I can't control where those bullets are going to go. So will I go get your people and get them out of there, even if they've been shot? I will. But you're going to indemnify for it completely, because I can't tell you where the next mudslide, hurricane strike, whatever, the next missile strike is going to go. And that's how contractually I would never run this business if I had any restrictions whatsoever. And some corporations, of course, the general counsel prefer, we know the 5 things are going to redline your contract every time. I mean, it's so predictable, it's comfortable. And then I have to sit with the general counsel and say, okay, smart guy, or girl, here's the deal. You want me to go into a war zone or terrorist attack? Yes or no? Because you don't have any coverage right now. So if you want me to do it, I'm going to do it, but you're going to indemnify me. And then I run through 3 or 4 real-world examples, and then they go, okay, you're right. And if they won't, I walk. It's that simple. I'm never going to get pinned into, if you want me to do what no one else will do, you're going to give me what I want, or I'm going to walk. And then you have a problem, not me.
Everybody needs to think about this. The taxpayer dollars created this guy because he's incorrect. So we're all getting what we pay for here.
I am curious to hear your opinion on if the war in Ukraine will end, and if it will end soon or later.
Yeah.
I also would like to hear your opinion on if Ukraine will be able to retain their territory.
Yep.
And then I also want to hear your opinion on China.
Okay.
The war. I would like to know if we'll be fighting a real war like we've known in the past, or will this be like a security, oh my gosh, new thing?
And Dale, you got 1 minute to do it all.
Yeah, so I can't answer all that 1 minute, so what we'll do is just come see me after, but I'll just hit the high points. I think the only way the Ukrainian war does end is, yes, and I give full credit to Zelensky for sitting and standing in there and doing what he's doing. Ultimately, he's going to have to give something up. You've got to give, I know that's hard to hear. If you want to end this, though, if you can put Vladimir Putin on a platform and give him some kind of win, I think it's the only way you're going to get through this. I think it's the only way you're ever going to get him to go to Turkey and do a diplomatic solution and get something done. If the U.S., NATO, and Zelensky just go, no, it's all or nothing, this is going to go on for a very long time and it's going to get nasty. And the use of, and I have to say this on TV all the time, you can Google me and find this, I said this publicly, from day one. I said this 3 days after the war started. If you read, not that you should or even know this, but if you read Russian doctrine, there are 2 levers they can pull, chemical warfare and nuclear warfare, where if this is escalating, their tactic, their literally, their outline of warfare is they will utilize chemical weapons, they will utilize a nuke in order to de-escalate. I mean, it's the way they're trained, it's ingrained in them, that's how all their leadership thinks. So again, I would go back to did we get 9/11 right? Did we get Turkey right? Did we get Paris right? Did we get Afghan? We've never gotten it right. This entire town is loaded with billions of dollars spent so we try and get it right. If you discount that if we push him hard enough, that he won't use chemical weapons or he won't use a nuke, I think you're completely wrong. I don't think it's most probable. I don't even think it's desirable. But I think it's still possible. I just did an article in Bloomberg that said there's a 5% chance that can still happen.
And on that good news.
Yeah, roger that. Thank you.
Thank you for that.